The battle above K-7B was over. The Xylos fleet was a broken cloud of debris. The few surviving ships jumped away into warp, their formations shattered. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew cheered. The alarms stopped. The red lights switched to a calm, steady white. Commander Kalen did not cheer. He stared at the main screen, showing the quiet stars. He could not forget the words. "The next one will cost you." Down on the planet, the mood was different. The Vikral warriors looked at Eva Rostova with a new respect. It was mixed with fear. Vorak lowered his rifle. He watched her as she stood calmly near the open pods. Leo felt a heavy weight lift from his shoulders. They had won. They had a chance. He walked over to Rostova. She was looking at the other glowing pods. The sleepers inside were still forms behind the glass. "Commander Rostova," Leo began. "The fight is done. The Xylos are routed. We have ships. We can take you home. Back to Earth." Rostova turned her head slowly. Her cold blue eyes focused on him. The hint of a smile was gone from her lips. "Home?" she said. The word sounded foreign in her mouth. "There is no home. There is only the hunt." She gestured with a thin hand toward the pods around them. "My brothers and sisters are waking up. Their minds are stirring. They have slept too long." Leo's feeling of relief began to curdle into something else. Something cold. "What are you talking about? We won. You helped us win." "We used a simple trick on a simple enemy," she replied. Her voice was flat. "The Xylos were a good test, a worthy quarry, but they are just the beginning." She stepped closer to him. She was not tall, but she seemed to fill the space. "You wanted to know how to win. You never asked what you would have to become to do it. You opened the cage, little soldier. You don't get to tell the predators where to hunt." She looked past him, through the vault door, and up at the ceiling as if she could see the stars beyond. "We have seen the maps of your coalition. So many new worlds, so many new kinds of prey." Leo's hand moved toward the gun on his hip. It was a reflex, a thoughtless act of fear. Rostova was faster. Her hand snapped out and caught his wrist. Her grip was like iron. She did not look angry. She looked amused. "Don't," she whispered. "The hunt is everything. It is all there is, and it has just begun." She released his wrist and walked toward the vault entrance. She did not look back at the dead Xylos or the stunned Vikral. She looked only forward at the open sky. Leo stood frozen, his arm hanging at his side. He had saved the Resolute. He had saved the coalition. But as he watched Eva Rostova walk into the light of the alien sun, he knew he had doomed the galaxy. The two remaining Xylos scouts attacked. They moved together, a blur of black chitin and sharp edges. The woman, Eva Rostova, did not back away. "You two," she said to the nearest Vikral warriors. Her voice was a dry rasp, but the command in it was absolute. "Draw the left one. Make it extend its primary limb." Vorak looked at Leo, who gave a sharp nod. The two Vikral fired their plasma rifles. Bolts of green energy slammed into the left scout. It shrieked and turned toward them, lashing out with a bladed arm. As it did, Rostova moved. She was not fast, but her path was perfect. She stepped inside the other scout's reach. Its blade sliced the air where her neck had been. She grabbed its limb, using its own force to unbalance it. She drove her knee into a joint. A sickening crunch echoed in the vault. The scout collapsed, its leg bending the wrong way. She did not kill it. She pinned it to the floor with her boot and leaned close, watching the way its mandibles clicked. She was studying it. On the bridge of the Resolute, high above, Kalen watched the feed from Leo's helmet cam. His scaled face showed disbelief. He saw the third scout still fighting the Vikral. He saw the woman, Rostova, ignore the battle to examine her captive alien. "She is not helping them," Kalen said to his officer. "She is using them as test subjects." Down in the vault, the fight ended. The final scout lay smoking from plasma burns. Rostova stood up from the crippled one she had been observing. She walked to a console, her fingers flying across the keys. Data streamed across the screen. "They communicate on a resonance frequency," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "A shared wavelength. It is their strength. It is also a weakness." Leo moved toward her. "We can use that. We can tell the fleet." Rostova cut him off. "Telling is slow." She isolated a data packet on the screen. It was a complex schematic. "This is faster." She opened a channel. It was not a coalition military frequency. It was a general broadcast, powerful enough to reach any ship in the system. "What are you doing?" Leo asked, his voice tense. She pressed a final key. "Sending a message." On the Resolute, Kalen's console chimed. A new file arrived. It was labeled Lesson 1. He opened it. Inside was a weapon schematic. It was a resonance bomb. The instructions showed how to build it from a ship's own power core. It was not a physical bomb. It was a sonic weapon designed to broadcast a destructive pulse on the Xylo's communication frequency. The message was simple. It would not destroy ships. It would shatter the minds inside them. Outside the view screen, the Xylo's fleet, which had been moving in a perfect, terrifying formation, suddenly broke apart. One of the larger hive ships veered off course. It fired its main cannon. The blast did not hit the Resolute. It struck the ship next to it, tearing a hole in its side. Then another ship fired wildly. Then another. Chaos spread through the alien armada like a disease. They were turning on each other. Kalen stared at the screen, his mind struggling to understand the scale of the victory. A single message, a single idea from a sleeping mind had done more than their entire fleet. He looked back at the data packet. A second, smaller file was attached. He opened it. It was a single line of text from Rostova, addressed directly to him. "The first lesson is free. The next one will cost you." The hiss of the vault door was the only sound. Cold, stale air washed out from the darkness. The Xylo's scouts stopped their advance. Their clicking sounds grew faster, sharper. Leo did not move. He watched the open door. The Vikral warriors kept their rifles aimed, their eyes flicking between the aliens and the new threat. Lights flickered on inside the vault. They revealed rows of tall glass pods. Most were dark and empty. A fine layer of dust covered them. But in the center of the room, a few pods glowed with a soft blue light. The lead Xylo's scout took a step forward, its blade-like arm rising. "Don't," Leo said, his voice low. He wasn't talking to the alien. He was talking to the vault. He walked slowly to a console near the pods. His fingers moved over the dusty screen. Text and images flashed. Log entries from a forgotten war. "This was not a weapon depot," Leo said, his voice flat. He read the words aloud for the others to hear. "It was a prison." The logs told the story. The pods held the most dangerous minds from Earth's last great war. Not soldiers, strategists, architects of ruin. People who understood war as a pure, terrible science. They were too smart to kill, too dangerous to set free. So they were put here to sleep forever. The project's name was their final joke, Final Hunt. The lead Xylo's scout seemed to understand. It let out a high-pitched shriek and charged at Leo, its blade aimed at his chest. At that moment, a pod hissed. The sound was loud in the quiet room. The glass front slid down. Fog spilled out onto the floor. Inside, a woman sat up. She was thin. Her skin was pale. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit. Her hair was short and dark. Her eyes opened. They were a piercing, cold blue. They did not look confused. They looked focused. She saw the Xylo's scout rushing toward Leo. She did not shout. She did not panic. She simply swung her legs out of the pod and stood. Her movements were fluid and sure. The scout was almost on Leo. Its blade was a blur. The woman moved. She was not faster than the alien. She was in the right place. As the scout lunged, she sidestepped. Her hand shot out. She did not have a weapon. She grabbed the scout's bladed arm. She used its own momentum. She twisted. There was a loud crack. The alien's limb snapped at the joint. Black fluid sprayed the floor. The scout shrieked in pain. The woman did not stop. She shoved the broken limb, now a weapon, into the creature's main body. It shuddered and fell, twitching. The other two scouts froze. Their clicking stopped. The woman looked at them. Then she looked at Leo. A slow smile spread across her face. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a hunter who has found its prey. Leo spoke into the silence. His words were for the Vikral, but his eyes were on the woman. The Xylos. They are not a true hive mind. They are a collective. They absorb the knowledge, the tactics of every species they consume. He glanced at the dead scout. They have learned from warriors, from scientists, from pacifists. He looked back at the pale woman, who was now wiping the black fluid from her hands. But they have never tasted a predator like us. The Resolute shook as it broke through the atmosphere of K-7B. The ride down was rough. Alerts flashed on every screen. The ship was falling apart. Leo held onto a strap, his knuckles white. He stood next to Commander Kalen and a team of 4 Vikral warriors. Their leader was a large soldier named Vorak. His scales were a dark green, and his eyes never stayed still. They landed hard in a shuttle. The ramp lowered with a groan. A gust of cold, thin air hit them. It smelled of dust and old metal. The sky was a dull orange. The ground was cracked and gray. In front of them was a large metal door, half buried in a hillside. It was covered in rust and old warnings. "This is your hope?" Vorak asked. His voice was a low rumble. "A hole in the ground on a dead rock. It's not what's above ground that matters," Leo said. He walked to the door and entered a code on a faded panel. Nothing happened. He hit it with the side of his fist. With a loud screech, the door began to slide open. Darkness waited inside. They moved in, their boots echoing in a vast, empty space. Leo found a power relay. He rerouted power from his shuttle. Lights flickered on, one by one. They revealed a huge room. It was not a military base. It was a museum. Holograms flickered to life around them. They showed creatures from old Earth. A giant cat with teeth longer than a man's arm, a massive wolf with a jaw that could crush bone, a bear that stood taller than 2 men. The images showed humans hunting them with spears and primitive guns. Then the images showed the creatures lying dead. The word extinct flashed under each one. The Vikral watched in silence. Their culture valued the hunt, but also honor. This was different. This was eradication. Then the holograms changed. They showed human wars, trenches filled with mud and bodies, cities burning under a rain of fire, a terrible flash of light that vaporized entire populations. Then soldiers in advanced armor, their faces hidden, turning their guns on other humans. Monsters that were once men, created in labs, tearing each other apart. Leo's face was hard in the blue light. "We didn't just hunt animals," he said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the silent hall. "When we ran out of monsters, we turned on each other. We hunted ourselves. That's the final lesson. The only way to win a fight is to erase the line between hunter and prey." Vorak turned on him, his tail lashing. "This is not strategy. This is sickness. You are monsters." Before Leo could answer, a new sound echoed through the hall. It was a sharp, scraping sound from the entrance, like metal on stone. They all turned. 3 Xylos scouts stood at the broken door. They were smaller than the hive ships, but just as alien. Their bodies were made of overlapping black plates. They had too many legs, and their arms ended in long, sharp blades. They clicked as they moved forward, their movements fast and jerky. The Vikral raised their plasma rifles. The air hummed with charging energy. "No," Leo said. He did not move. He did not reach for his own weapon. "Do not fire." Vorak looked at him like he was crazy. "They will kill us." "Let them come," Leo said, his eyes fixed on the advancing scouts. "They need to see. They need to understand what they are really chasing." He took a step back toward a massive, circular door at the far end of the hall. It was marked with faded radiation symbols and the words, "Primary Vault." As the Xylos scouts skittered closer, their blades raised, a deep thrumming sound filled the air. It came from behind the vault door. Then, with a loud hiss of releasing pressure, the giant door began to open from the inside. The air on the bridge tasted of smoke and fear. Alarms screamed a constant, painful warning. Red light washed over the grim faces of the crew. Commander Kalen, tall and scaled, watched the main screen. His thin fingers gripped the edge of his command chair. Outside, space was on fire. The last human warship, the Odyssey, hung between the Resolute and the enemy. 3 Xylos hive ships moved toward it. They were like giant insects made of black metal and sharp edges. Their weapons glowed with a sickly green light. "The Odyssey is signaling," a Vikral officer said, his voice tight. "They say, 'Go now.'" On the screen, the Odyssey turned. It flew straight at the center of the 3 hive ships. It did not fire its guns. It flew faster. Then, a light. A silent, white explosion swallowed the Odyssey and the 3 enemy ships. The screen went pure white for a second before dimming. Where the ships had been, there was only floating metal and fire. The bridge was quiet for a moment. The only sound was the steady beep of a damaged engine. Kalen slammed his fist on the console. "The line is broken. They are through." He turned, his large, dark eyes full of a cold anger. "The Xylos consume everything. We cannot fight them. They learn our weapons. They learn our plans. We are just food for their growth." The main door hissed open. Leo Cross walked onto the bridge. His simple gray armor was blackened on one side. A cut on his forehead dripped a line of red down his face. He moved with a tired steadiness. "The retreat is as good as it gets," Leo said, his voice rough. "We lost the Orion and the Atlas with the Odyssey. That's the last of our heavy ships." Kalen gestured to the screen, now showing the main Xylos fleet. It was a swarm of dark shapes, blotting out the stars. "You see? We throw ships at them. They eat them. There is no strategy against hunger." Leo walked to the navigation console. He did not look at the enemy fleet. He looked at the star chart. "You are wrong," he said, his tone flat. "You have been fighting them wrong this whole time." Kalen stared at him. "What are you talking about, human?" "You try to build a stronger wall, a bigger shield. You try to outlast them." Leo tapped the screen, pulling up a new star map. A single, bleak system glowed. The planet was a dull, gray ball. "You don't outlast a predator, Commander. You don't hide from it. You don't scare it away." He turned to face Kalen. His eyes were the color of a stormy sky, and just as hard. "You become a better predator." He held up a small data slate. The file name glowed on its surface. Project. Final Hunt. The star chart was centered on the dead world, designated K7b. Before Kalen could speak, a new alarm shrieked. The tactical officer's voice was high with panic. "Multiple new contacts. They are here. They are all around us." The main screen lit up. One by one, the Xylos fleet dropped out of warp. Dozens of hive ships formed a perfect, inescapable ring around the wounded Resolute. They were trapped. Leo looked at the surrounding enemy, then back at the image of the dead planet. He knew their only hope was to run to the one place no human was ever supposed to go.